Well, good morning to all of you. We will have to do a bit of an African call and response. When I say good morning, you say good morning. That's right. Well, good morning to all of you. I'm Mark Edo. I'm going to be the moderator for this opening session, which is called Partnerships for Prosperity. Did you all catch the big news yesterday? Dubai's port giant, DP World, and CDC Group, that's the UK's development finance institution, they announced that they would jointly invest $1.7 billion in expanding and modernizing ports across Africa over the next several years. Now, it's all part of DP World's plan to expand supply chains across Africa and supercharge African trade and economies. Now, the man at the helm of DP World says they're committed, DP World is committed to Africa for the long term, and that they see lots of growth and opportunity on the continent. So I'd like you to give a warm welcome to the DP World Group Chairman and CEO, Sultan Ahmed Bin Sulayem. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Thank you very much.
How are you this morning?
Great.
It's great to be the opening act after so long. This, by the way, is the first time in almost 2 years that I've been on a big stage. I'm sure not for you, but it's very exciting to be back after the COVID pandemic kept us apart. It's a bit like a school reunion for all of us. Now, this is very exciting. I want to start with the news that came out yesterday about CDC and DP World. So let me tell people a little bit about what I know about it. You're expanding ports that you already operate in Egypt, Senegal, and Somaliland. That's right. And both DP World and CDC are already sort of active across Africa. So it's sort of a good fit for the both of you. So can you tell us, what are you investing in? And how significant is this for African jobs and businesses? Well, what does it say about DP World and its commitment to Africa?
Thank you very much. Well, it's my pleasure and honor to be here with you today. Definitely it's amazing news. CDC investment with us in Africa infrastructure is a vote of confidence in the economy of Africa. I believe this is a big milestone. It is the largest investment they have in the last 72 years. This will encourage many others to come and invest in Africa. Why? Because one of the biggest issues in Africa is infrastructure. Ports, facilities, rails. Africa needs funding, and only it can come from private sources. And this is really very important for us. We are very passionate about Africa. You can see our growth and our spread. We are invested from the beginning in many places where people thought it will not work, and it did. Why? Because we, as a company, we have a lot of experience in running ports, on trade, and we see that Africa has something that nobody else has. They have growth more than anybody or any market we've seen. The potential of growth in Africa is big. And that is why we are investing in Africa.
And tell me how important, this is called Partnerships for Prosperity. That's what this session is called. So in order to partner for prosperity, where do ports come in? We know that ports are 90% of all goods traded around the world are traded through ports. They're very, very important. How important is the work that you're doing in Africa to Africa?
Very important. I mean, let me give you an example of Dubai. One of the biggest investments in Dubai are in ports. We started from the beginning with Port Rashid and then Jebel Ali. Today, a combination of Jebel Ali Port and Jebel Ali Free Zone contribute 32% of GDP in Dubai and probably 22% for the whole country. So free zones and ports create jobs. The ports are the gateway. But the issue is really sometimes people misunderstand it in the way that everybody says, I want to build more ports. The port by itself doesn't bring business. Industrial parks and a free zone does. And this is something we learned in Jebel Ali. The Jebel Ali port, in the beginning, from 79 to 85, not much business came. In 85, the free zone was started, and that started the business in Jebel Ali. Because a free zone, industrial park, create a captive market for the port. And I've seen many countries, they keep building ports and ports, but at the end of the day, unless there is cargo to be transported, nobody's going to use the port. The big creator of jobs is industrial parks, free zones, logistic parks. This is something we do very well. We learned. We done it in Dubai, it worked. We're replicating what is in Dubai today into other countries. Give you an example of Senegal, fantastic country, a great government, highly educated people, pro-business attitude, and that allowed us to invest. Today we're investing in expansion of the Dakar port. And this funding with joined with us with the CDC is going to be allowing us to expand even more. And today we're investing in Senegal, for example, 800 million euros in a port and industrial park where the government matched our land. So we have 600 hectare land and government putting another 600 to put it together. It's an amazing experience of Dubai move to Africa. Today, where you are here, we are near Dubai Al Maktoum Airport. Between Al Maktoum Airport and Jebel Ali Port is the best combination, seamless connection between a port, logistic, and airport. And we do exactly the same in Senegal, and I really admire His Excellency President Macky Sall for his vision and decision. He decisively put the port near the airport in an area where it will allow a growth and expansion and allow trade to work.
And what's really exciting is that it's not just about building the port. It's not just about building the industrial park. Investments spark other investments. Success builds on success. One example is the dredging and deepening of the Maputo port. That saw the building of a coal factory there. So that's what's exciting. It's sort of a domino effect, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, there is a formula we have. Whenever we look at any port or any investment in a country, we look at the GDP growth. There's a formula that we always look at. 1% growth in the GDP in a country reflects another 3% in cargo. And so wherever we go, we need to build an industrial park, something that creates jobs and increase the purchasing power, and that in return increase the GDP. Once the GDP increases by 1%, the cargo will be increased by another 3%. That's important. So creating jobs. Africa has a lot to offer. Growth, resources, and people. Today, a lot of products from Africa go in raw. What we try to encourage is added value. The added value. If you look at countries where they produce peanuts or cashew nuts, why should it go to the consumer in raw when it can be roasted and done in Africa? It's not a big thing to do. It creates jobs and gives more value to the country. And that's what we're striving for.
Now, in a few hours or so, I'll be interviewing the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, on this very stage. The African Continental Free Trade Area, the AFCFTA, went live in January of this year. That's when trading began in the biggest free trade area in the world at the moment. I would say that, to me, it's the most exciting Pan-African vision in my lifetime, no doubt about it. To make it a reality, though, will take trillions and trillions of dollars of infrastructure investment in things like ports, in things like roads, in things like bridges, things that you build, right? The private sector. Now you've committed to investing in infrastructure, and I think this 1.7 billion that you'll be investing together with CDC is proof of that. Post-pandemic global capital is very, very cautious and risk-averse and seeking safe havens or so. So what are some of the ways that we could possibly catalyze investment in infrastructure in Africa, especially with the private sector, to make the AFCFTA a reality? Because I guess the question is, how do we build fast?
Well, if you notice, not just in Africa, in many countries around the world, the inter-regional trade between countries in Africa are very low. While in Europe, for example, you will find that inter-regional trade are maybe 65%. In Africa, it's hardly 3 to 5%. The reason is bureaucracy, customs, many other obstacles. Infrastructure is big. I'll just give you an example. In Rwanda, we invested in a dry port. And we chose Rwanda because it is central, it is close to Malawi, close to Central African Republic, Congo, Uganda, Burundi. And so it can even supply part of Tanzania and Kenya. And so we put a dry port there. It costs $5,000 to bring a container from Dar es Salaam or Mombasa to Kigali. It takes 2 weeks. Now we started. The cost came down to 2,900 and it's coming down. And the time it used to take 2 weeks, now it's taking only 3 days. So time is important. Many Africans live in landlocked countries, and the cost of transportation cargo is big. I mean, to bring a container from China to Mombasa, maybe $1,500, and to take it by road, 2,000 kilometers, 5,000. This is excessive. And that's where we use our expertise. There are many, many ideas that we learned and we have done that reduce costs. And that's what we need to do in Africa. Definitely, this CDC is encouraging investment, and there need to be road, there need to be rails, connectivity, and it needs definitely the private sector. What Africa needs to do, and African government, is to ensure transparency and governance, because that's what attracts the investment of the private sector.
And you've been very vocal about that. I just want to stay with when you talk about that road-rail balance. And in fact, recently, I think you built a rail service, didn't you, in Mozambique?
Yes.
That made it faster. Tell us about that.
Well, from Maputo to Harare, we have the Maputo port, and of course, the closest to Zimbabwe is Maputo. And so there is a rail now which connects cargo, and that makes it faster. And Zimbabwe is a landlocked country which needs to export and need to import. And how do we reduce the cost of transportation? It's very important. Today, the supply chain around the world is inefficient by itself. In fact, the supply chain has so many complications and delays, and it is probably one of the last non-disrupted business in the world is the supply chain, because there are so many stakeholders. Now imagine the supply chain from developed countries like China to Europe is still inefficient. So imagine when you add to that lack of infrastructure in Africa. And so that's where we came in with introducing the platforms. So when the pandemic happened, the whole supply chain stopped, and we faced a problem. You cannot meet your customers, and you have to adhere to the pandemic restrictions. We overcome that by accelerating investment in platform and digital platform. Today we have many platforms like Cargos, Freight Alliance, many platforms that we introduced, Dubai, DUBUY, which is a business marketplace that basically we digitalize business in Africa, digitalize business in UAE and the region, and people go on that as business and find the right product, the closest to them, and allow them visibility. So what we need more digital platforms. What we need is better infrastructure, and that, I think, with reducing the restrictions and the bureaucracy, it will help. And of course, with the African Union, this is now hopefully happening.
I want to stay on that, topic of the COVID effect. We're seeing vaccine rollouts now. Things are changing. We're back here, all of us together. By the way, you can also send your questions through the Slido app as well to the stage. I have an iPad in front of me, so I'll get your questions and I can ask your questions if we have time. So we've got a vaccine rollout, but we're continuing to see that disruption that you talked about in the supply chains brought on by the COVID pandemic, and it's particularly in shipping, of all places. Now, industry experts say there's significant delays in getting containers in and out of ports, and there's a backlog, a significant backlog of cargo. And also, another thing too, and you may be able to validate this, that container rates are skyrocketing. It's becoming more expensive to move shipments because of this. We don't know when the situation will ease up, and I'm not going to ask you to crystal ball gaze and give me a particular date because no one knows. But I would imagine this is going to go on at least through 2022, and you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong on that. How's it going to impact your ambitious plans across Africa?
Well, the pandemic, I think, have really gave us new realities. And I will really remind everyone about the Belt and Road. China have invested billions in the Belt and Road Initiative, which basically, China concept is that you can produce anything fast, better, cheaper, and we have the best ports to export. What they don't have under their control is from China to the world. So they have 3 belts by sea, which is China, Asia Pacific, which means Indonesia and Australia and New Zealand, and China route to Southeast Asia, like Myanmar, Vietnam, and then China to Europe. So they want to make sure that this route is smooth and it has facilities, and if there is no port, they will build a port to make sure the cargo goes faster. And then they have 3 rails by road, which are China, Russia rail in Europe, China, Russia, Kazakh, Europe, and China rail, Afghanistan. Well, the reality of the pandemic is interesting because the problem today is not the out of China or the road to Europe or the consumer. The problem are many for China. Today, China is closed down, and nobody knows how long. China will not tolerate to see any more spread of the pandemic, and so they'll close the port without warning. So what's happening today, many people who need, especially in the automotive industries, they needed basically the chips, they need many components, and the problem, they already manufacture them, but they cannot get out of China. The port is closed, and the ports are, nobody knows when it's going to be open. And the second, of course, the shipping cost is increased tremendously. To the West Coast was $7,000 to $5,000 to $7,000. Today, to the West Coast, sometimes $30,000. The problem today also, you can't find containers. Empty container is a cost for us in the port. Today, it's a very important thing to find. And so these are the complications. Nobody knows, as you said, how long it will take. I think it's going to take a long time.
How long? Could you stick your neck out and...
I don't know. I can't really. But I believe that, you see, the problem is complicated because there is a backlog of cargo that hasn't gone. So you have 2 issues. Cargo that is ready to go, already planned to go, and then cargo that hasn't gone. And that means that will delay that. Remember when the ship got stuck in the Suez Canal? It created a ripple effect of delays. And so there are many, many issues related to this. The world will overcome it. But to think that pandemic is gone, no. Pandemic will stay, and we have to adapt to it. We have to behave in the behavior that will save our lives. And I am very optimistic that now the vaccines have been given to people. Most people got, in UAE, almost 100% vaccinated, and many countries have been vaccinated. The UNESCO, we are cooperating with them to reach the furthest areas to vaccinate people, but this will be with us.
And we're all talking about this kind of like new normal in everywhere you look, in every aspect of our lives and the way that we live and work and do business. Can you, in your sort of perspective, forward-looking perspective, do you see a new normal for shipping? And we're not going to go back to the way things were, even when things do calm down. And is there an opportunity for Africa, for example, to fill some of these gaps in supply chains?
Definitely. I mean, what the pandemic showed people is that you cannot really manufacture everything in one end of the world and move it to the other. So the pandemic is really the straw that broke the camel back, I would say. But also, the cost of producing in the Far East is increasing. It's not anymore a cheap place to produce. And then 3D printing, which allows something to be manufactured somewhere else. And then everyone in the world today is moving to produce where the consumers are. That's a movement. The pandemic came, and now today, not just foreign companies that are producing in China, but also Chinese companies are moving production units outside. It's not difficult. Nothing today is made by hand anymore. When you see the old factories with a belt, with people touching with their hand, actually, today, all your smart devices are made with nanotechnology, nano size. A nano is so small, 100,000 nanos in a hair, imagine. And so that means the iPhone or the smartphone is made by a machine, not by people. Your television is made by a machine. So basically, when they want to make it somewhere else, they only move the machine. You move the machine into the consumer markets. Africa has highly educated people. Africa today is not the old Africa. People sometimes mistake that. I met many, many bright, young, educated, innovative people. Some of the top 500 Fortune companies, their chairmen are from Africa. So Africa is not the old Africa. Africa can provide people, high educated people, who can run these machines. These jobs today, the future jobs, and I will call this really, today we are in the age of the brain. The industries of the past are vanishing, and everything is made by machines. So what's the role of people? People will not be replaced. Machine learning, and these technologies are made by people. Your iPhone is made by a machine. If you look at iPhone as an example, I'm not promoting iPhone, but what's an iPhone? It's an idea that came to Steve Jobs that today produces $70 to $80 billion profit, more than countries make. Now, Apple doesn't own oil or mining. They own ideas. So today, the future wealth of every country is education, is the knowledge, is the ideas that are in the brains of people that's going to work. We have ports around the world which doesn't have people at all. And people ask, where are the people? There are machines. A machine carries the container. The machine runs on a battery. The machine, when it runs the battery, it goes to a charging station. So people say, where are the people? What happened to the people? The people are not doing the repetitive job. The people in the port are in their offices, mobilizing work for the port, calling the consumer, the cargo owner, and telling them, I'll bring your cargo to my port, and I'll fix your problem, and I will reduce your cost, and I'll bring down the cost, and I will reduce the time. That is what we need from people, their ideas and their knowledge. We don't need the hand work. In the old days, in the port, the person who makes more money is the strong person. He can carry more, but not anymore. It is the person with the good idea, with the bright idea that make money. So the future jobs that are going to come, which will be replaced by machine, are high-paying jobs. If we put a factory in Senegal or in Berbera or in Rwanda or in Egypt, that advanced factory will employ people who will be paid more because they're using their brain, and they can afford that. So the future jobs are good, and I don't believe machine will replace people. because the machine needs people to adjust it, needs people to adapt it and to create it. And so I am very optimistic that the new industries will be the new thing that's coming to Africa.
And that's one of the big challenges of industrialization in Africa, of supercharging manufacturing and mechanizing farming and taking us to this Africa we want, as the African Union coined that phrase. How do ports and the work you do, how can that be connected to these young people and lifting them in their skills and capacity? I think of my own country, Nigeria, and how we've had an oil and gas industry for decades now. But when you sit on an aeroplane going from the UK or the US, and the only technicians or oil workers are all foreigners. And then when you get onto the port, when you go onto the oil rigs and so on, most of the skilled jobs are not taken by Nigerians. That's changing, but for decades they've been importing skills. How can you be part of the solution to upskill those young people you're talking about?
We are already involved. We have programs for education for the young. We participate. We fund education. This is very important. It's part of our social responsibility in Africa. This is something we really like. We train people. I'll give you an example. I mean, today, if you look at DP World, we have 56,000 people. In the next, maybe, I would say 3 to 4 months, we'll become almost 100,000. We go to Senegal, and we train people. And then Senegalese now are running our ports in other areas in the world. We train people in Djibouti, and now a Djiboutian is working for us in another place. So we train people, and we need them. We need highly educated, dedicated, passionate people about work, but give them the tools, and that's what we do. So as far as education, as far as training, we work, and we participate with government. There's a big program, and I admire Macky Sall, President of Senegal, for launching a program where to educate people, to bring the new industries to the country. And there are many African leaders who are passionate about that, and we are going to work with them. We are already working, and we're already ready to fund. This is the key for us, to come in a country and introduce a new industry and introduce business. You need the people. We don't bring people from outside. In every port, we have the people trained. We go to country. We went to Peru. They had no ports. They don't have any experience in a port operation. And today, that port is the best in productivity in any port in the world. They never done it before, but we trained them. And training in a port today is just on handling, but on how to think and how to use a machine and how to innovate and how to bring a new product to the market, and not to be shy to bring an idea, because it's all about ideas. And I tell you, as DP World, if you see our success and where we've been, it's all ideas came from our people. People thought of something that we can do it better, and it comes from Africa. If we see something good there, we're going to replicate it somewhere else.
I've got some questions coming in now. Are you ready?
Thank you. Yes.
Can I fire a few of them at you? There are quite a few here. Let me just randomly pick one. Okay, how about this? Legislation plays a very important role. Africa needs non-reversible and sustainable policies to attract industry. What's your outlook in Africa about that, about policies, legislation? Because it's not just about infrastructure.
Absolutely. I mean, to encourage investment, they need to have governance. They need to have good, friendly legislation that encourage people to come, and they should look at their laws. A lot of times, sometimes people have the intent. We meet in country and say, yes, we know we need to do that. The problem, do it fast. Because by the time you get around this and say, I'm going to do it, the opportunity will go somewhere else. I tell you, I give you an example of Barbara. Barbara is a small country, but with high ambitions. And it's amazing how they can introduce a law so fast. They have an independent parliament, and the minute you want something, the president said, it's a good idea, I send it to the parliament. And within days, the parliament met and discussed it independently, and it happens. I mean, I'm very impressed of how it works. And that's a good example of governance. Senegal, another one. Rwanda, Egypt, with Sisi. He changed so much in reducing the regulation and making it customer friendly. To bring business, to bring people like CDC, to bring people like Macquarie, one of the biggest infrastructure banks in the world, you need to have a legislation and rules and change the laws that does not become, it is basically an impediment. Change the law that you see. People sometimes get so attached to the law. The law needs to be changed. I mean, I remember when we did the free zone, we were studying with a legal advisor how to create a law, and it takes time. And then, at the end of the day, we said, wait a minute. I mean, and I told the legal advisor, I said, if you are trying to find a law that nobody can change, or nobody can take advantage, or nobody can make a loophole in it, if you are able to do that, if that is possible in the world, you have a law that nobody can violate, then in that case, you don't need jails, you don't need lawyers, you need courts. It's impossible to have a foolproof law. What you do, you have a simple law, and if somebody comes and take advantage, you amend the law. It's just like our firewalls in our company. We have firewalls for people to attack us with virus, and we find a loophole and we fix it. So the law should be simple. If somebody take advantage of it, you go and change it, and you adapt it and make it tighter. But don't make a law so difficult because you don't want to prevent the bad guys, you make it difficult for the good guys. It's impossible.
Your Excellency, I want to sort of get inside your head and understand the secret to your success. One thing that's really marvelous is the dramatic effect that DP World has wherever it goes. I think of the Maputo port, for example, and the changes that have happened there. That's not done without partnerships. This session is called Partnerships for Prosperity.
Absolutely.
So what really is your secret? Because you seem to be able to go into any African country and make friends.
All our agreements and all our, DP World is 94 terminals. That is 94 partnerships with governments. We like growth. So the secret with DP World is we can go and see a port anywhere in the world, and we are invited to invest. But if we see that this port is making money, but there's no growth, we don't touch it. We need to grow. We cannot stay in a place that doesn't grow. And this is part of our DNA. Like Dubai, we grew. And then in the world, we grow. We work with governments to grow their business. We get encouraged, actually, when we see the government is matching our ambition, matching our speed. You will see us very energetic. But if we see a country that, if we want something today, it comes next year, we don't have a time. We budget to invest in a place in a year. If we don't use it, we go and invest somewhere else. But we want to grow, and we are innovative. And we always like to listen to ideas. As I mentioned, one of the success for DP World is that we listen to our customers. A lot of time people think what people need, and you provide it. It's wrong. You have to see who's going to use it. And whoever is going to use it, you have to discuss with them how they're going to use it, and then you invest.
What are some of the landmark projects that you're doing at the moment? What's in the pipeline?
Well, we're expanding Senegal, huge port. It's going to be port of the future, $800 million. We are expanding even Rwanda, Maputo, Somaliland. Today is about maybe close to 500,000 capacity. It's going to be 2 million. We believe in it. We believe it's going to be a port that will be needed in that area. You look at Ethiopia, we're looking at dry ports in Dirdawa and other places in that country. Ethiopia is a landlocked country with over 100 million people. They have a lot of growth. The impediment of growth is the facilities. So we have great opportunity. Egypt, for example, we expanded the second basin. We're putting an industrial park. We're looking at many projects. I mean, today, there's no limit to our imagination. I remember I was with the president of Uganda, Mr. Museveni, who mentioned that during the British time, they used to bring cargo through the Nile to Lake Victoria. And I couldn't understand, how can they bring it up? And then he told me, well, it comes by ship, then it goes by truck to the next lake until it goes 7 levels to the lake. There is no reason why this can't be done again, using rivers for transportation. This is not something difficult. We do that in Papua New Guinea. We do it in Argentina, to Paraguay, Uruguay. We do it across the rivers and many parts in the world. We're going to do this in India also, using the water transport. Because people, when you look at transportation, the most expensive mode is by air. Second is by rail. Third is by truck. And the cheapest is by sea or water. And even in Lake Victoria, we're trying to use Kisumu Port in Kenya to take cargo from Mombasa to Kisumu, and then by across the lake to part of Tanzania close to Rwanda.
I'm going to round up by asking you a question and asking you to crystal ball gaze a little bit in the future. It's a misty optic. We don't know what's going to happen, but are you optimistic, especially about the relationship between the UAE and Africa and how mutually beneficial that partnership can be for the prosperity of both?
Well, what we do, we look at Dubai, for example. How did Dubai grow? Hardly have any oil, but has business-friendly policies. Free zone is contributing. And what we do today with Africa is we tend to replicate what we have here to see it in Africa. Why? Because it succeeded here. We know it succeeded. I think more trade agreement between Africa is important in the future, now even, because the more trade agreement between countries, the easier the cargo can move between countries. Today, DP World is not the same as the past. In the past, we were only a port operator. A port operator is basically take the cargo from the ship, put it in the dock, take it out of the gate. Today, no. We have logistics, huge logistic ability, experience, which basically reduce cost. We own also vessels, logistic vessels, so we can carry cargo in our own vessels between port and port. We run trains in India. We are the second largest train operator in India after the government. In Europe, we have the ferries in also UK. We have the digital platforms, and we have fulfillment. Fulfillment is really the ability of us to mobilize the cargo from end to end, not only transporting, but even added value. So these are the new things we want to do, and we are doing it. And Africa is on our radar, and Africa is the most important market for us in our spread around the world.
Well, that was the opening session, Partnerships for Prosperity with the DP World Group